I'm still director of the mission. And in the past 2 months, we've emerged under the name of CDCU, Christians Defense for Children United. That's the educational branch of Freedom Gospel Mission. And we're endeavoring to set up an elementary school here in the headquarters that we have now for next fall. And we'll have junior high and high school at the Bancroft Christian School in Bancroft, about 10 miles from here. This school will be a feeder school to the junior high and high school. This elementary school here will be named in memory of my grandfather, Reverend Avis Hill, who's a Baptist minister for 43 years, Free Will Baptist minister that was an evangelist and pastor of churches, and whose influence, my upbringing through him and my mother as a Christian for 39, 40 years is what has evolved to bring me to where I am today in my Christian beliefs in Christ. And knowing that unless our nation, our people turn to the Lord, turn to Christ, and our nation is doomed. The scripture states that a nation that turns its back on God will be turned into hell. So it's more than just dirty words in a textbook with me here in Kanawha County. It's a moral issue, it's a religious issue. And when people take and defame the name of the Lord and use God's name in vain, and degrade the deity of Christ, and I as a minister, or just as a father, or a taxpayer, as a citizen of this nation, I have to stand up. 10 months ago, when we got involved in the textbook protest here in Kanawha County, I owned Hill Plumbing Company. Whenever Labor Day of '74 came, and we had a mass rally on the Sunday before and had upwards of 10,000 people with Reverend Marvin Horn and myself at Campbell's Creek Community Park. Reverend Horn selected advertisement in the radio, and the week before, on Tuesday, he held his first rally at Campbell's Creek, and we held I looked at the textbooks for the first time also here in St. Albans. And going and looking at those books, I realized that I had to stand. Back in the beginning of last summer, I operated a tent meeting here in St. Albans. I had a tent. We ran the tent for 12 weeks, and we 70-some decisions of young people made the decision for the Lord there. We felt that during the summertime, young people needed something to do, so we set the tent up. People ask us all summer long to go and look at the books after the board had adopted them last May of '74 and decided to take the language arts adoption into the schools. I was tied up and busy like most other ministers, and felt like that God was using me in the trying to set up the mission and the tent revival, and was kind of turning my back upon the issue because I felt that I didn't have enough time to go look. I felt I was doing God's work in the mission until that Tuesday before school started on Labor Day of '74. They finally cornered me and got me to go look at the books. And when I saw the books, I just was impossible for me to keep from protesting. At that time, that's the last time that Hill Plumbing Company has worked, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 days. At that time, with our tent set up, we set a rally up on Sunday afternoon, after the viewing the books on Tuesday. The very first time I started the protest, being a plumber by trade, we set the rally up on Sunday afternoon at the tent. The back road that led over to where the tent was set from my house on a Sunday afternoon. We got in our car, or Sunday morning, we drove to the tent, And as we drove down the back road, the first thing we came upon was a broken commode in the street. After we found the broken commode, we drove to the tent, and the newspaper article that had all the advertisement in about the big rally at Camel's Creek, newspapers were scattered, Sunday morning newspapers were scattered all over the street. We proceeded on over to where the tent was, and to our surprise and our amazement, we looked at our tent and saw that someone had come in the hours of darkness that night, and took a knife and destroyed our tent and ripped it on all four sides. This was the first week of the protest movement. At that time, I felt that maybe it was a coincidence, maybe it was just vandals, maybe it was young people. But later, as the textbook protest continued on, I began to realize that breaking that commode in the street, me being a plumber, coming from my home to the tent, finding the newspapers destroyed, and finding the tent torn all to pieces, I realized with the much pressure that's been applied to me since then that it wasn't just coincidence, that it was people trying to tell me to stay out of the textbook protest, get out and stay out. We began to work in the textbook protest, march in the streets, get people together, along with Reverend Horn, Reverend Ezra Grayling. We worked very hard. We stood in resistance to the textbooks. We were in rallies at the roadside park here in St. Albans, night after night after night. The people with citizen band radios here in the community. We had a network of communication where we could bring 4,000 or 5,000 people on the streets in just an hour or two notice. We had telephone communications where people were responsible for one another to bring people out. The radio station here, WKLC radio station, Skeeter Dodd was general manager. He went totally out of his way to help the people of Kanawha County in the textbook protest because he saw the issue and stood very firmly. In fact, the matter, he laid his job on the line and stood up for me countless times. The threats of violence toward my family and myself became very, very great. The newspapers have depicted it being as we're a bunch of radical extremists here that have broken the law, created violence. But most people haven't heard of the violence side that's taken place against the people of Kanawha County. We've had people that's had their cars firebombed. We've had the ambulance driver, Bucky Hedrick, that works here in this headquarters. His ambulance had sand poured into the transmission. It's sugar in the gas tank. His tires was cut off his vehicles 2 or 3 times. At one time, my home was under 24-hour guard with double guard at night. My family was protected. Phyllis Harmon's home was under watch. Alice Moore's home was under constant surveillance 24 hours a day. They drove around Alice's house one night shooting shotguns. One night during the protest, and numerous phone calls and letters came in threatening me and my family. My dog alerted me one night, and we got up with our gun, went to the door, and we saw there was 2 people in the yard going to firebomb us and burn us out. For 2 weeks in the beginning of the protest, I went without sleep, maybe an hour of sleep at night. Never taking my clothes off at night, sleeping on the couch, literally with one eye open and one eye closed, with a shotgun laying on the floor beside me to protect my family. We had numerous threats. We had our brake fluid siphoned from our master cylinder on an automobile, along with the Alice Moore's automobile, her husband, Reverend Darrell Moore, Gary Williams, Charlie Halstead, people that were working security, helping with us. We had numerous times we were cursed, spat upon, talked about and ridiculed by the people that were for the books. In the beginning, when we really were bringing people out in the streets, coal miners were coming out, leaving their jobs, fathers walking off their jobs every day, shutting down the Kanawha Valley economically. Great pressures were being applied to us. Threats were being made. And it wasn't a coal issue here in Kanawha County. As a lot of people said, they were trying to get a contract for the next union meeting, new contract, but that wasn't what it was. It was daddies that left the job, walked off in defiance of the textbooks because of the bad influence they were being going to be upon their children. A way of life was threatened here in the mountains of Appalachia. We're a close-knit group of people. My ancestors are Scots-Irish, and my heritage just doesn't go back 50 years from the time my mom and dad came from the old country. My heritage goes into the mountains of West Virginia and Appalachia, from Grandfather Mountain in Linville, North Carolina, up into Virginia, across over into West Virginia. My heritage is a deep heritage of Scots-Irish people. My great-grandfather, his origin goes back into the mountains of West Virginia. So I'm 3 or 4 generations into the mountains of Appalachia, being a part of the nation. We are part of the original people that came to this land, that fought for this land, that cultivated it, that made it the land that it is. And our family ties are great. The people in Chicago, there's hundreds of thousands of Southern people up in Chicago, people that were driven from their homes of lack of work, gone into the cities. Now they're living in, proud people are having to live in literally a ghetto situation in Chicago, stacked up like stacks of blocks, people living off of the welfare. And our people are proud people, but have been held back, a lot because of education, a lot because of the fact they were told that they had no education and there was no jobs. Back in the 60s when the emphasis was put on education, the people with education finally got their education, being a plumber, being a businessman, realizing that education is not everything. Whenever, here in the past few years, I hired a young man out of high school, he didn't realize that, he didn't think that he owed me something for the opportunity of giving him a chance to learn a trade. He felt that I owed him something. I had 3 crews running at one time, 3 trucks going. I find that so many times people are looking for something today for nothing. I was getting constantly ripped off by men that worked for me, not because I wasn't paying a decent wage, but because they wanted something for nothing. Anything that's worthwhile today, you have to work for it to get it. It doesn't come easy. I found that I was nearly bankrupt because of the fact that the men that I hired were ripping me off, so to speak, as the new term is, and I was having to go back and do so much work myself, as we say down here, lick someone else's calf. And I found myself very much in financial despair, so I had to shut down 2 of my crews and went back to working myself, management and production. Whenever the textbook controversy came along, that was it. I was the management and production part. When God laid it upon my heart to lay aside the job, protest the textbooks, consequently Hill Plumbing Company ceased to exist. I haven't worked any, as far as my company's concerned, the last 10 months. We have had to sell our home at the very time that we're making this recording. The closing is being made on our home. We've had to sell everything we have to clear our debts in order that we might be able to keep what's left. The only thing left is our name and our reputation in order to clear our bills, to pay our debts, because this protest movement has taken that much. But not that we care to have lost anything, because we know what we're doing is right. And to own a beautiful home and have a nice automobile, a nice bank account, would mean nothing if 10 years from today my daughter were to stab me in the back because she was trying to get a fix on drugs, or because her morals and her soul had been taken from her because of what was being taught in the textbooks of Kanawha County. But as the textbook protests continued on, and we began to talk to people in Boston, and the mail began to roll in around the states, we stood in defiance at the Board of Education. In October, we went to jail the first time for praying, Reverend Ezra Graley and myself, along with Charlie Quigley. We went to jail. We got bond and was out. Then a couple of weeks later, we stood down at the St. Albans bus garage, along with 14 other people, moms and dads, and husbands and wives. My wife, Linda, and my daughter, Paula, my baby brother, and myself, along with Randy Agdens that works here, his wife, Jan, Ezra Graley, his wife, Ezra's brother, Bill, and his wife, Karl. Bucky Hedrick works here at this headquarters, and his wife, Karl, also went to jail that morning there for setting down the street. And you've heard over the newspaper the reason why we set in the street to block the buses. But Reverend Ezra Graley's brother that morning was picking up trash, and one of the bus drivers came in his own personal car and struck him with an automobile. When he struck Bill with the automobile, he threw a paper bag to the ground, and the deputy sheriff ran over and arrested him for littering. And we told him to arrest the man for hit and run. He let the bus driver for hit and run go. So at that time, when we all sat down the street and we were all arrested. Then we were given show cause orders for blocking the buses. We came to the county again before Judge Goad twice in a row. The second time, Judge Goad sentenced us to 30 to 60 days. And at this present time, we have a 90-day jail sentence and $900 in fines pending against us in appeal, along with Reverend Ezra Graley and the other 14 parents, mothers and dads. After going to jail twice, they tried to stop us by putting us in jail, but it makes our determination even more. We began to receive telephone calls. We began to receive letters from all across our nation. We began to have news media, magazine writers, columnists come in, interviewing us. We began to produce a newsletter from the people here that had witnessed, to let them know what was going on. National media began to call us. Talk shows began to call. We were traveling around the nation. We flew up into Chicago back a few months ago in Alice Moore. We appeared on the Phil Donahue Show, a nationally syndicated talk show. We were on there. We've been on numerous mutual news programs. We were on the Liberty Lobby program. We've been in Washington, D.C. numerous times, and the Heritage Foundation of Washington, D.C. has helped us tremendously. Mr. Jim McKenna has come to Charleston and represented the mothers and the people here in Kanawha County with the court costs and so forth, representing them, helped in the truancy charges that have been put forth. We held a national rally here on November the 30th. We worked very hard to get this put together. We invited people from all around the nation. We had 20-some states to come and appear, represent themselves here at that national rally. Dr. Karl McIntyre was the keynote speaker at that rally. And we thank Dr. McIntyre for coming and participating, standing up with us. And we feel very strongly as to what the man is doing and to do everything we can to help him to fight the war against Satan. As he says, communist, and that's what it is. But if we look at the issue just as it is and leave all the schisms and isms out of it and face it just like it is, it's the roaring lion loosed on the earth to devour each and every one that it can. In Matthew, the Bible states, the word states that if it wasn't for the Lord to shorten his days of coming, that even the very elect would be deceived. We see this upon our nation today. We've seen people that are believing a lie and being damned. People that's turned over to a reprobate mind. We see this in churches. But we also see a falling away from the big church organizations. We see just every day where people are pulling out of their churches, forming new congregations. American Baptist Church here in Cross Lanes last week asked the congregation to vote and accept homosexuality in their churches. They refused, and 200 some people of the church and the pastor withdrew from the church and walked out. We have Presbyterian churches that have split here in Kanawha County because of the overriding influence of the World Council of Churches, the National Council of Churches. through the people. They're tired. They're fed up with it. Independent churches, fundamental churches are being set up daily in this valley and around the nation. Due to all the persecution and everything the people have had to take here in West Virginia. People, the press saying we're a bunch of extreme hillbillies, barefoot hillbillies in the mountains of West Virginia. Well, as I travel around the nation, the many states, 39 states we're in contact with, and of the 39 states, 32 of the states tell us here in their letters that had it not been for the people of West Virginia, that they would have not stood up. And the past, West Virginia's been looked as a people that are a backward people that are living in the dark ages, so to speak. Well, if accepting such moral standards, which is no morals today, the accepting of drugs, abortion, legalized murder, all of these things that our government is taking today, if this is progress, if this is bringing us out of the dark ages and putting us into the mainstream of society, we in West Virginia will just settle for where we are and stay where we are. The reason why the protest movement is strong in West Virginia is because we have such a large concentration of people, families, and homes that are sticking together. A lot of the news media have depicted it as being a race situation. The Klan in West Virginia have come, the KKK. People in West Virginia, basically, God-fearing people that love their family, love their country. The Klan hasn't had that kind of influence here. We are clannish because our families live close together here. That's the only clannish tie I can see, because it's all right for brother to talk about brother, but don't let strangers come in and talk about brother. My families, and many of the families are here back for generations, and we live close. The new education is trying to split and tear down the family tie. If they can do away with the family tie and the closeness and split everyone up and send them off into different directions, that's the whole plot behind it, divide and conquer. There's a conspiracy today, there surely is. It's not by the people of Kanawha County, but it's by Satan. It's by those that are atheists, those that don't believe in God, those that would like to control, dictate to you your freedoms and take those away from you. The educational system today, because I'm active like I am, they don't want any free thinkers. They don't want anyone that's an individual to think for himself. You get a young person into the classroom today, you can see the individuality of himself and want to think and so forth. Immediately they classify him. If he has too much energy, the school classifies him as special education. They call him hyperactive. They give him drugs to slow him down. If I were in the educational system today, then I would be hyperactive because of my individuality, because my determination, because the vitality, the strength God gives us to continue on 12, 14 hours a day, without sleep sometimes, without much food, without much finances. It's been very difficult. The liberal group that is in control, they can understand. They keep hollering that we're mass financed, well organized. We're mass financed and well organized because we have God on our side. That's the only reason. When they work 8 hours, they expect to get paid for their 8 hours. If they work over 8 hours, they expect to get double time. They won't work for nothing. Dedication is what makes this fight in West Virginia continue on, because people are not working for money. They're working for their soul, for their very being, for their very living. So we're going to win because we have God on our side. With losing literally all that I have in this textbook protest, I don't regret 1 minute of it. If I had it to do over, I'd do it again. There's been times that I woke up crying, tears on my pillow at night, because of the great pressure that's been upon me. And I wake up and I prayed in the very beginning. I thought, oh Lord, why? Why just a little old simple fundamental preacher, high school graduate that's never been to seminary? Why did you pick me? Why couldn't you pick someone that had a good degree, that was able to talk real eloquent, was able to speak, was able to have an influence? But I realized that God couldn't work with the scribes and the Pharisees. Christ couldn't, when he was upon this earth, to learn. They were educated to the point they wouldn't listen and let God lead. God said, I'll take simple things to confound the wise. That's the reason he went down to the seashore. Got an old boy by a fisherman by the name of Simon Peter and said, come, Peter, I want to make you a fisherman of men. Because Simon would listen to the Spirit of God and be led by the Lord, not be led by himself. So now I realize why God has used these three fundamental preachers here in Kanawha County. Even at this time, one's been indicted for conspiracy to bomb a school. And the only evidence they had to tie him in with it was one gas can. That's all they had. But they tried one man that had confessed, signed a signed confession with 6 counts against him, tried Reverend Horn with this man, so as when the evidence was presented, that it would make it appear that Reverend Horn was involved. That gas can's the only thing they had to indict him on. The grand jury with 30 or 40 people upon it. When they voted to indict him, only 13 people voted to indict him, and 20-some people voted not to indict him. Even the foreman of the jury said he was against indicting him. There was enough evidence, circumstantial evidence. But yet 13 people voted to indict him, and it only takes 12. So he nearly wasn't indicted anyway, but yet the man stands and faces a 3-year jail sentence. We have had the Internal Revenue harass us. We were called in for an audit. We went in to talk to the lady about the audit. When we went in and she opened up the dossier on us, we thought we would see first out in the folder our income tax return for 1973. But what did we see first? A newspaper clipping that said Reverend Avis Hill, textbook protester, Kanawha County. And I wonder what that had to do with my income tax return for 73. Just like Watergate, just like whenever the pressure was put on of dirty tricks in the Watergate, we saw how the IRS was used as a big club to hammer down, to beat down those that would stand up in defiance of the administration. They won't indict and bring everyone up on conspiracy charges, all the ministers in West Virginia. They'll use us and get us in different ways. They're trying income tax on me. They're trying to beat it down over my ears, to discredit me. They're trying their best to indict me. And probably they will succeed. But I want everyone to know that whenever it happens, that I've stood for what's right. And as I said, they'll not do it all. They'll not get every minister the same way because it will look too conspicuous. They'll do it in different directions. They'll attack in different directions and destroy each and every one, unless all of God's people stand for what's right. When I asked them why that newspaper clipping was in there, they said it was general information. And I told them, I said, no, that's not general information. This is general harassment. The lady said, I'm not here to harass you. And I said, no, ma'am, I know you're not, because I'm not going to let you harass me. God led me into the textbook movement, and you'll not pull me out and audit my books for 4 or 5 weeks and keep me tied up to kill the protest. I said, when I have the time, I'll bring my books in, you can audit them and look at them. I have nothing to hide. I've never had anything to hide. There's no skeletons in my closet. I've always been a tax-paying citizen, God-fearing, law-abiding. And I told her I'll not be pulled away from the protest. She said she wouldn't. I said, no, but you have people that hire your bosses that would. 2 weeks after that call in by the IRS, we saw on ABC News and NBC, they run documentaries about the IRS, how they were used to harass people, how one man had been audited so many times, how they had used this, how they had quotas that they had to reach their agents in these audits and so forth. So we know we're being harassed, not just by consequence or not by coincidence, but there was 3 of us in the same week. Elmer Fike of the Professional Businessmen's Alliance and Skeeter Dodd, all 3 of us were called in for an audit in the same week. That's not coincidence. I've got used to these things. They'll try to say it's coincidence, but if you've had happen to you in the last 10 months what I've had happen, then you know they're not coincidence.